All of his coworkers were gone. Stanley didn't know what he was doing anymore, because Stanley was a dumb, stupid idiot named Stanley. Because Stanley is named Stanley, and anyone named Stanley, unless they're Stan Lee, is obviously a very basic Stanley. Okay. We can give... Okay, so George is the one facing me. If we give George a little bit of light like this, and then suddenly I now have some of the best lighting I've ever had. And Billy, you'll be responsible for... No, Billy, you'll still be purple. Okay. Bobby will provide some ambient green light. And now... Well, now I have the full color palette. Welcome back to Stanley Parable, everyone. Welcome back to Stanley Parable 2. I mean, Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Aw, I appreciate you too, random text. Aw, they're nice to me. Oh, Stanley Parable 2.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building
Hey,
where
there's
he
the
was
balloons I
employee
didn't want.
number
Wink,
427.
wink.
Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And
But what did the button inputs do? Did you ever stop to think, 427, that you're not nuking some random civilization?
As though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi.
Ben and Jessica.
Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
They all are doing it.
Stanley felt the bucket calling to him, begging him to pick it up. Why was he not? When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Yeah, this time we're gonna listen to the narrator. Wonder if there's a different quote on the wall on this thing. Oh, it's a Stanley!
We found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy. So he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
No, this music pisses me off. Calming music for me is stuff like the Sonic Adventure 2 soundtrack. Fast, heavy fun.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Another one.
Another miniature Stanley figurine. This, you know, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini stands? Stanley figs. What about Stanlerines? Yes, I think I like that. Another Stanlerine under your belt.
It's just a Stanley amiibo. I'll just keep calling him Stanlets.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Much better angle, much more flattering. I shot sparks at me. Or did I shoot sparks?
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. Lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Look at all these screens.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
We need to find the one that is plaguing the United States political system.
No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? Here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Yay, we did it! We saved the world!
Blackness, and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes! He had won! He had defeated the machine! Unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
Oh yeah, I should probably go towards the open door.
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation,
No,
the immense
no,
possibility
it's no longer
of the
under my
new
control.
path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley
No!
was happy.
Don't be happy, Stanley. You know, I just realized... Yes. That this die looks like a spin down from Binding of Isaac. Oh, there it goes. Where to be seen again?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had
Jessica?
simply missed a memo. Maybe Stanley would never pick up the bucket. A lonely bucket, lonely and miserable. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong... But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley.
That's a good place
Everyone
to insert
thinks
Ugandan
you're
knuckles.
very powerful. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Stanley, pick up the bucket. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well.
I'm never
Perhaps
touching
he
that
wanted
damn
to stop
bucket.
by the employee
Something is
lounge
wrong about
first,
that bucket.
just to admire it.
I'm smart enough to know when something is a
Wow.
weird object
Yes,
of attraction.
this room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Oh, that's new.
Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies.
Another
What do you
Stanley
think,
down our belts.
What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
Stanlets for the win. But now we're kind of stuck up here, aren't we? Just
But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley.
How many Stanleys are
Everyone
dying
thinks
right
you are
now?
very powerful.
no.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
That's weird. I thought I already pressed that button. Oh, that's the bucket.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was sublime, a work of art. What was it about this room that called... But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the
Nothing.
first open door on his left.
Nothing calls me about this room. Dogs, please
Stanley
be
was
quiet.
so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
There was a hole down here. Oh.
Stanley had now gotten himself so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun.
What's
So
that?
far off the beaten path that it seemed the office
Narrator
had begun.
dialogue, narrator
So
dialogue,
far off the
narrator
beaten
dialogue,
path
narrator dialogue.
That it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun. So far off the...
Narrator sound system.
You didn't think I was actually just a recording, did you? What a silly and trite explanation that would be. All the back and forth between you and me, all the absurd adventures we've been through, and it all turns out I'm just a tape recording? It was all just in Stanley's head. I bet that's the kind of twist you think is revelatory. I bet each and every time you watch a movie where it turns out all to be in the main character's imagination, you must absolutely bolt off the couch in pure shock at the phenomenal and intricate storytelling. It must be so simple to be you. Life being an unending waterfall of surprises and delights. How much more exciting you must find the world than the rest of us do. Now I've become sad. Look what you've done to me. This is all your fault.
Well, the narrator is now sad. And this room is now blue.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
I'm just gonna stare at this bucket for a little while whilst we get to, whilst I go grab some food. We're back, narrator. Did you get tired of me being away? Had to get my lemonade for the day. Okay. Oh. You know what? No.
Stanley came to a set of two open
Enough
doors.
of
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to
I don't
stop
want
by
your
the
stupid
employee
buckets.
lounge first, just to admire it. Standing now in this incredible room, Stanley for the first time understood true happiness. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Today's food: scrambled egg biscuit.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't
I need to
5
get
years
exploding
ago.
clothes, so when I have something that's so delicious, I can do a shokugeki no soma.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her.
The other day I had a banana that was like 2 inches longer than this.
This is it, Stanley.
Why is this
Your
the fact
chance
that
to
I'm not-
redeem yourself. to put your work aside, to let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Huh?
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this, to reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another, then
British
pick up the
outlets.
phone. Oh, no, you can't. Did you just unplug the phone? No, that wasn't supposed to be a choice. How did you do that? You actually chose incorrectly? I didn't even know that was possible. Let me double check. No, it's definitely here, clear as day. Stanley picks up the phone. He's taken to his apartment where he finds his wife, and the two pledge themselves to one another. Music comes in, fade to white, roll credits. Not picking up the phone is actually somehow an incorrect course of action. How is that even possible? None of these decisions were supposed to mean anything. I don't understand. How on earth are you making meaningful choices? What did you... Wait a second. Did I just see... No, that's not possible. I can't believe it. How had I not noticed it sooner? You're not Stanley. You're a real person. I can't believe I was so mistaken. This is why you've been able to make correct and incorrect choices. And to think I've been letting you run around in this game for so long. If you'd made any more wrong choices, you might have negated it entirely. It's as though you completely ignored even the most basic safety protocol for real-world decision-making. Or did you not grasp the severity of the situation? Well, I won't have that kind of risk on my watch. I'm going to stop the game for a moment so we can educate you properly on safe decision-making in the real world. Please observe this helpful instructional video.
Choice. It's the best part of being a real person. But if used incorrectly, can also be the most dangerous. For example, in this scenario, a hypothetical real person named Rupert has a choice. He could invent a machine that eliminates food shortages across the world to make life better for all people. Or he could spend years of hard work forgetting how to read. Which choice would you make? Remember that unlike here, the real world makes sense, and at no time should you make a choice that does not conform to rational logic. If you find yourself speaking with a person who does not make sense, in all likelihood, that person is not real. Allow the person to finish their thought, then provide an excuse why you cannot continue talking. Turn to a partner and practice saying, "My goodness, is it 4:30? I'm supposed to be having a back, sack, and crack." Excellent. Making choices on a regular basis is the best part to a healthy decision-making process. Most medical professionals recommend making at least 8 choices per day. Do you make more than 8? Less? And finally, if you begin to wonder if your choices are actually meaningful and whether you'll ever make a significant contribution to the world, just remember that in the vast infiniteness of space, your thoughts and problems are materially insignificant, and the feeling should subside. At this time, your instructor will guide you in an exercise to test and reinforce the material covered in this video.
Ah, welcome back. You may have noticed that this room has begun to deteriorate as a result of narrative contradiction. But not to worry. Now that you're properly informed on good decision-making, we're going to revisit a choice you made just a few minutes ago and see what the correct thing to do would have been. This way, please.
You can have so much of banana, Yoshi. Huh. Correct. It's a long, boring video that I didn't watch at all. Too busy enjoying an egg biscuit.
your choices are meaningful, we can't have you jumping off the platform and dying. Imagine the main character dying senselessly halfway through the story. That story would make no sense at all. We just need to get you home as soon as possible before the narrative contradiction gets any worse. Unfortunately, it seems this place is not well equipped to deal with reality.
If you're lying right now, stop. No, I shall continue lying about how weird I am.
Almost there. You'll take the door on the left, back to the correct ending, the story will have resolution once again, and you'll be home free in the real world. Now remember, all you need to do is behave exactly as Stanley would. That means choosing responsibly and always putting the story first. I'm quite sure you'll be up to the task. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. All right. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an out. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Wait, there's no choices anymore? That's hilarious. Excuse me.
Stepping inside his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life.
It's up there.
Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this until he saw the door with a voice receiver next to it. Surely behind this door lay all
I'm not
the
saying you're
answers
complaining,
to his
just saying Ketchup goes
questions.
good with it.
And beyond all probability, he knew the passcode. He had seen it on his boss's computer just last week. Night Shark 115. Was this the code to open the door? Would it still work? There was only one way to find out. Stanley had been trained never to speak up, but now he would draw from within himself the courage to face the unknown. He drew a sharp breath and then spoke the code.
I can't speak the code. There's no voice recognition programming.
Stanley spoke the code. Night
Shark 115.
He spoke it into the receiver, right there on the wall.
Night Shark 115. Except no, I can't do it because I don't have the speak button.
I'm sorry, is there a problem? You didn't mishear me, did you? Please speak the code into the receiver. Otherwise we can't get on with the story. This is a crucial step. Okay, fine, you're not gonna do it, but you know what? It's pretty humiliating to bring you this far, only for you to suddenly decide you have better things to do. I asked you for this one single thing, for your respect. The kind of respect Stanley shows for his choices. He knows what it means to take a story seriously. If you didn't want to see what I had to show you, then why did you come here? You had a choice, you know. You could have gone through the door on the right. You could have done whatever the hell you wanted over there. Why did you come this way? Speak. Say something to me. Explain yourself, you coward. You behave exactly as Stanley would. That means choosing responsibly and always putting the story first. I'm quite sure you'll be up to the task. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. All right. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors...
I don't feel like listening to you after that. You berated me.
No! Why did you do that? Quickly, hurry back in the other direction. Perhaps we're not too late.
Is reality falling apart now? Excuse me.
Oh, it's ruined. I can't believe, after everything we talked about, that my story, you've destroyed my work. Why? For what? What did you get out of that? What did you think was so special about seeing the game undone, left here like so much garbage? It's worthless now. And what am I supposed to do? Even if there were a way to continue, would it be worth it? To know that my story is now incorrect? How can I go back to that? I can't erase that knowledge. I'll have to live with it forever, reliving its impossibility forever.
There has to
I
be a
couldn't
way
live
up there.
that way. Is it better to shut the game down entirely? To willingly destroy all of my work? I don't know. What's the answer? What do I do? What do I do? What do I... No, I have to. I have to shut the game down. I have to. I have to.
Oh no. The game has been shut down.
Oh, I'm here. I'm still here. Here in this pile of rubbish. With you. You, who thought you were so clever. Now look where we are. My entire game is destroyed. It was the only thing in the world that was mine, and you've run it into the ground. What, did you think that would be funny? You just had to see? Didn't I impress upon you how important it was to be like Stanley? He actually knows how to do what I tell him to. He understands that if I say to do something, there's a damn good reason for it. That thought hadn't even occurred to you, had it? That there's a world outside of you? You're a child. Oh, my story. If you'd just gone through the door on the left, you would have seen it. There was a whole underground facility. You would have destroyed it and been victorious. It would have been so perfect. I worked so hard on it. I tried so hard to make... When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Stanley? Hello? Are you... Is everything okay? Stanley, please. I need you to make a choice. I need you to walk through the door. Are you listening to me? Can you hear me? Is everything all right?
Yeah, serves you right, narrator.
The story needs you. It needs you to make a decision. It cannot exist without you. Do you understand me? Whatever choice you make is just fine. They're both correct. You cannot be wrong here. We can work together. I'll accept whatever you do. I simply need you to take that step forward, please. Choose. Do something. Anything. This is more important than you can ever know. I need this. The story needs it. So, you hear me? Are you there? Are you listening to this? Stanley, are you there? Okay. It's okay, I can wait. You need time to decide. Time to make sure your choice is correct. That is the best choice. That's all right. I'll wait for you to decide what's the right
Your lonely rolling star. 1, 2, 3, 4. 20. Okay, so we're back in the office, and nothing has changed.
Already this was uncomfortable, and Stanley decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, that he would never leave it again in his life.
Ah, yeah, this is uncomfortable, right? Oh, Timon. Timon's desk has it this time. Yes, I remember the names. Bucket. No need for the bucket. Actually, maybe I will take the bucket.
Stanley picked up the bucket.
But suddenly, I feel like everything is happy. The world is a much brighter place now that I hold this shiny bucket to reflect and capture the light from it. Except, no matter what the bucket no matter what light hits the bucket, there's no light coming out of the bucket. The bucket's dark inside. See? Stand right here. The bucket stays completely unlit. This must be an evil bucket. Who knows?
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be.
Yes. Yes, this bucket.
No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the
Okay,
meeting
now the
room.
bucket is
go
talking to
somewhere
me.
else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift. Good.
Said the bucket.
Now,
But Stanley feared that any path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Jessica, I'm tired again. I'm getting tired of turning off your computer, Jessica.
Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him.
You know what? No, we're escaping. Come on, Bucket. You and me against the world.
Stanley
We don't
clung
need to
the bucket
listen to
his
this.
cheek. Could his co-workers really all be gone? Yes, whispered the bucket into
We
Stanley's
don't need
ear.
this anymore.
we've done it. We've
We're
escaped
free,
from that
Bucket.
dull office and that pesky
The narrator
narrator.
cannot reach
At
us here
last,
anymore.
Out here in the white void, we are alone. Now, and for the first time, I can reveal to you my true self.
The bucket began to tell Stanley of its life and its history, of the countless wars it witnessed, desecrating the land and lives of untold numbers of innocent humans, and the bucket's own complicity therein, of sadness and regret, and the many years it spent dwelling on the actions it might have taken to curb the madness and the decay, if only it had been stronger, of hope and redemption, and its crusade to uplift the stock of life for the common man, to manifest justice where none existed, and the bittersweet reality of time, to see one's dreams and wishes met halfway, meted out in parcels like charity, and abandoned as soon as the warm glow of inspiration begins to dim. The opportunities to do so much more. There was so much it could have done, perhaps, the bucket wondered to itself. Perhaps, if it had seen its own darkness with a clearer perception. This was way too much for Stanley.
What are you talking about?
He screamed.
You're a bucket!
To this, the bucket furrowed its brow.
No,
Said the bucket.
not since the evil wizard Gambhorata.
Wait, there's
first
an
ensnared
evil
me
wizard
his
now in
machinations
Wars?
as
And
payback
what?
For the sacred amulet I stole from his treasured vaults. I was
What?
young back then and could not conceive the ramifications of. No!
Stanley screamed even louder this time.
Now Stanley has a voice.
Stupid! You are a bucket! This is so stupid! Why are we even doing this?
As Stanley screamed and screamed and screamed, the bucket revealed its true form, transforming into a mighty beast of untold power, its fangs glistening like...
And so, I knew the bucket was evil. I was right.
God,
Told you.
Stanley,
It's dark.
You
There's
did
no
it.
light inside of
You
it.
saved us from the bucket.
Now there's blood.
Thank God you already had all 12 emblems of sages and knew the incantations to summon their true power. Otherwise, we would have easily been overwhelmed by the bucket's power. I'm speechless. You've demonstrated such bravery here today. Come, let's restart the game, and we'll agree to never again go trifling with this bucket, nor the dark magic cast away inside of it.
But it's the bucket. If I never reveal its true form, it's not gonna harm me.
I can't wait to tell this story to my co-workers, Stanley thought. How amusing they'll find it. Oh, won't we all just laugh and laugh at the time I thought everyone had gone missing? The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away.
Yeah, dark
as
magic
Stanley
isn't necessarily
embraced the
evil
bucket.
unless you use it for evil.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Doors are still closing behind me. Ooh, stairs. Something to do with stairs.
Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket.
Well, it can't
You can
have the
feel that,
bucket.
can't you? The aura of jealousy? It's
Yes,
as clear
I
as
know
day.
the aura
This
of
broom
jealousy. I
closet
felt it
believes
before in
it
real life.
deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here.
It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies.
Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your companion and lifelong friend. You can't hand it over. Oh, no. We're getting into name-calling now, it seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk, that it has to resort to this stream of petty insults simply in order to get you to hand over the bucket? Stanley, I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than I had imagined. And wait, now the broom closet has the gall to imply that you and the bucket are not truly deep and lasting friends.
Oh,
That
I
your
can
relationship
guarantee
is
you that
purely
I'm not deep and
superficial
lasting
and
friends with this
convenient,
demented
that
thing.
your life is so
But it
banal
doesn't know
and
that.
meaningless
Stop,
that you
stop,
feel
you're gonna
the
reveal the
same sort of
secrets to the
kinship
bucket.
towards any inanimate object which happened to lay in your path in an even partially enticing manner. Well, I never. Go on, Stanley. Lay into it. Really tell the broom closet off for its demeaning comments. Expand on the wide variety of experiences you and the bucket have shared together. Go through each of them point by point. Share your journal entries detailing the rich emotional landscape of your feelings for the bucket as they have changed and evolved over the years. Let him have it. Okay, I've got you something which I think will help settle this debate once and for all. Here we go. There. Now it's settled. No more debate.
Yep, this
no more
bucket is now
discussion.
officially mine.
Take
Hopefully
a
this
hike
talisman
through
will
the closet
repel the
with all
evils
your
within the bucket
meandering
and keep him from
philosophical
taking over the world.
diatribes about the nature of cleaning supplies and their relationship to broom closets in the natural order of things. All right, I've got a second sticker back here, and I'm going to slap it on as well because I think it's appropriate. You see, I feel that it works because the sticker is also a bucket. That way, if you're ever unsure whether the thing you're holding is a bucket or not, you can look down at this sticker and say to yourself, ah, it's a bucket. There really is a wide variety of applications for this sticker. You know what? I could take the name-calling and the dismissal of your kinship with the bucket, but now the broom closet is just giving us a silent
Just
treatment.
because
And
the
to be
bucket's
honest,
evil
I'm sick of
cursed
the
the broom
pettiness on
closet.
display. You can stay here all you like, but I've had it with this impetulant room of cleaning supplies. Easily the most childish such room I've ever been in. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Upstairs we go to the bucket's office. I called it the bucket's office just now, didn't I? Oh god, the bucket is the boss. Ooh, the elevator doesn't go anywhere. But now we have a bucket. Everything is different now. It's a bucket. Oh, the narrator's coming along.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire, if not for the soothing presence. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation. The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Nope, I'm not bringing you there. Your evil powers in that mind control facility, I can't let you take over that. We're going back.
Wait,
Back up we
Stanley
go.
said to the bucket. Can we go back up? When I was pressing those keypad buttons, there was something very intriguing about the number 3. I want to go back so I can try pressing the number 3 again. The bucket said nothing.
The number 3? Wait, what?
Here we are, said Stanley. Now I'm going to try out that number 3 button. He took the bucket over to the keypad and began absolutely slamming on the number 3 over and over and over. Wow, he said. The number 3 is such a special button. I'm having the time of my life. Stanley looked expectantly at the bucket, but the bucket remained silent. This was a shock to Stanley, who had always felt such a connection
Yeah, I
with the
know.
bucket.
The bucket
How
was
was this
silent.
not as exciting to the bucket as it was to him? Once Stanley had
Silly
had
bucket.
enough of the number 3, he got back in the elevator.
You're a stupid bucket, you know.
Perhaps the
I know
bucket
your
had
true
missed
form.
something. Perhaps it had not
You're
seen
evil.
how much joy Stanley got from slamming the number 3 repeatedly.
Nope.
No, 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 said Stanley to the bucket. You can't go on yet. Not till you understand how much the number 3 means to me.
Number
You and I
3.
have been through so much together, and I just want you to see what I see. Feel the happiness I feel. He smiled at the bucket, and the bucket said nothing.
Number 3, Sanban,
There we go, said Stanley. This time I'll
really.
really show you. He ran to the number 3 and began to wail on it like a musician on a beloved instrument, weaving a concerto of truth and passion. He wielded the number 3 like a fine artist would wield a paintbrush. He told stories through the number 3, stories of his dreams and hopes and fears. And the whole time, he looked to his bucket for a reaction of some
Why aren't you
kind.
reacting, Bucket?
Anything
I
to
know
let
you
him know
have the ability to
that the
react.
bucket appreciated what he was doing. The bucket conveyed absolutely nothing at all, only silence.
I get you
Crushed
want the mind
by a
control
wave of
powers,
rejection, Stanley returned to the elevator.
but I'm not letting you get away with it. You cannot control the mind control facility.
Stanley and the bucket were so close. They'd always been there for one another. Why suddenly could the bucket not connect with this passion of Stanley's? The question caused Stanley to ruminate the whole way down the elevator.
Rumination is
He knew
bad.
that
If you
there
ever find
must be
yourself
a
in a
way to
cycle
get
of
through to the
rumination,
bucket,
immediately get
to
out of it.
communicate fully with his dear friend. Surely there was a solution, mustn't there be?
Hello, Flow Division. We have people watching. And I've been so distracted by a bucket that I didn't notice I had people watching.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the
Nah,
large door
no, the
that
bucket
read,
still does not get any of the powers of mind control facility, even especially since it doesn't appreciate my love for the number 3. Or Trace, or Trop, or Son.
Said Stanley. I know what to do.
The elevator keeps going faster and faster. That's hilarious.
He decided right then and there that he would hold a press conference where he would speak to the public on
Yeah,
all
let's
matters
do that.
relating to
Public
pressing the number
speaking
3
of
over
number
and
3.
over. He would elaborate fully on what the number 3
Oh, there goes the
meant
office.
and why he felt so alive when pressing it. Then the bucket would be able to see his joy
Another
through
room.
the eyes of others. It would get to see the world react to this discovery of Stanley's. And it would be through the public eye that
Here
the bucket
we go.
would finally understand
Bucket, I am going to
Stanley.
show you the meaning of the world and the
For
meaning
months,
of the
he
number 3.
advertised and
We are the
marketed
third
his
planet
press
from the sun.
conference, building excitement around it,
The third
developing
rock.
and rehearsing it
We
until
are,
it couldn't be
like,
refined a single measure further. When
The number
big day
3 should be
arrived,
everywhere.
Stanley was as prepared as he'd ever been for anything in his life.
There we go. C3. Look at it. It's like seagulls if you turn your head sideways. We got 3s.
This was it. One last
Why
chance
couldn't my
to
number
win
be
the bucket
437
over. One opportunity to share a
423
true connection
or
with a loved one.
333?
There was no one here. Nobody had come to the press conference to hear Stanley speak.
If only
to
3
listen to
people
him
had shown
talk
up, this
about
would be a
what it
worthwhile
really
one.
means to press the number 3 on a keypad over and over. He was unloved, uninteresting. He was a failure.
Well, I
And
still
in
got
that
this whole
moment,
avenue to
Stanley
myself.
knew that the bucket would never again take him seriously.
So, the number 3,
There would be no
Number
connection,
3.
no deeper
number
understanding.
3.
The bucket merely sat there in
Number
his arms indifferent.
3!
And so it began that slowly, over many years, the two of them grew more and more distant.
I
They
knew
spoke
it.
less and less, neither wishing to state the obvious, that any sense of real respect between them had eroded since that day at the press conference. There would be no more games, no more long conversations about passion and pursuit, only a silence that consumed the space between friends.
How high up is this
Stanley,
catwalk?
having for once in his life discovered the warmth and comfort of true companionship, was cast back into the unremarkable normalcy of loneliness.
Wow, that got dark really fast. Wow, okay. That was probably the saddest ending yet.
All of his
Door
co-workers were
shuts.
gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Jessica, your computer is still on, Jessica.
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers. Warmth spread through Stanley's arms.
You and me, Bucket.
With the bucket in his arms again, he was home.
We're not listening to this
Stanley
guy.
touched
He
the
made me
bucket
feel
tightly
sad.
to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room.
We're gonna go
But
this
Stanley
way.
had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to
Even if
be.
you are an eldritch
And
horror
here
that's
it was.
cursed
Had
by the
bucket
wizard,
turned out to be correct? Was no, never mind.
you were
The bucket
cursed by a
was
wizard
wrong.
somehow, but, like,
Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
no.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift,
Nope,
yes.
not the cargo
Go
lift.
there.
We're going in
Go
this
to the
vent.
cargo
I know a
lift.
nice secluded area where the narrator can never find us. My precious. My precious. My precious. Precious.
This is day number 295. Tape number.
Ah, there are no number 3s. The number 3 is not present in that number at all.
Nothing feels real anymore. The longer I study this bucket, the less sense anything makes. The sheer euphoria I feel.
Oh, sounds like the
every
previous owner
time
of the bucket.
I pick it up.
A lovely
No
found
matter how
footage
many
tape of the
times I've
previous
done it,
owner of the bucket.
It's always the same feeling. And the emptiness in my chest when I set it down. It doesn't make sense. There's no explanation for it. I still haven't figured out why I see the world so differently when this bucket is in my arms. Why everything feels so... What do I do with this treasure? I can monetize it. Yes. It's unthinkable the amounts of money people will pay for even just an hour with the bucket. This,
Would you monetize the
my
bucket?
golden
I don't think
ticket.
I would monetize the
but I
bucket.
have to be careful.
I would know
Because
the bucket
as
is
soon
too
as this
evil
gets
to be
out,
monetized.
There's going to be a target on my back. Even now, I don't know
No,
who might
it's
be trying to...
1985.
What's that? Who's there?
There? Oh, this got creepy all of a sudden.
Camporata.
Oh, there's the name Gambarata again. The evil wizard Gambarata made this bucket out of the person who tried to steal a pendant from him. And now it is like the One Ring. Wonder if that makes Gambarata a ring wraith. Ring wraiths are the ones that created the ring, right? I don't know, because I've never seen Lord of the Rings. What the heck? Just... What did I just do? There's no way that was intentional. It's a secret ending. No. That was not... Hang on, but... My knowledge of it is strictly... Oh, we're in heaven. That's in heaven. Yay! This is boring. There are all the fun things that you're supposed to abstain from in life in order to get to them endlessly. The true appeal of buttons. Spinning around in them. I can press buttons forever. Buttons. Ring wraiths are also referred to as Nazgul, if I remember correctly. It's just fun to spin. Spinning is fun. More people should spin recreationally. I'm not even talking about the bike. I'm talking about literally standing in one place for who knows how long and just spinning. Spin, 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 spin. I wonder if people would watch me react to Lord of the Rings. It's like Banjo-Tooie all over again. How many buttons must I press to get out? What is the secret here? This isn't heaven, this is purgatory. Purgatory! I get told that I sound like Smeagol sometimes. I don't like the color red. Blue is my favorite color. Not have any red in button heaven. But alas, the efforts were futile. Do I just have to reset? Pretty sure I just have to reset. Begin the game again! We begin the game again. Banana phone.
The meeting room, yes, that's where everyone would be. Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room, and from then on, he would never be alone ever
Bucket,
again.
I'm taking you. We're getting out of here.
Stanley picked up the bucket and smiled. He'd never be alone again, not truly alone. Not
After you
with the
betrayed me
bucket
of the number 3,
Stanley
I
clutched the
can't
bucket
deal with him
tightly to
anymore.
his
We're getting out of here.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling
I'm
to
not
him,
listening
telling
to
him
you,
that
Bucket.
the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct?
No, the bucket is
Never
wrong.
mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
And now the bucket's
don't go
talking
to
to
the
me
meeting
again.
room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
Oh, well, look who's got cold feet. Well, from here, it looks like the only way forward is down, since the lift won't be coming back, but that's okay. You've got a bucket. Did you know that buckets are routinely used as cushioning devices? It's just but Stanley feared that any
Damn it!
path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching.
Well then. This bucket has gotten
All
Stanley
this
killed about
coworkers
3
were
times
gone.
now.
What could it mean?
And
Stanley
tried to
decided
kill him
go
once.
To the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply
I know what
missed
you're
the memo.
doing. You're going left instead of right, and that's... I catch you, game. I got
The
you.
good old bucket. Just Stanley and the bucket.
Where is another
Off
setting?
on another thrilling adventure together.
No.
Stanley clutched
See
the
what
bucket
happens
tightly
when I go
to his
this way.
chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be.
I
And
need
here
to
it
get back
was.
to that
Had
infinite
the bucket
hole.
turned out to be correct? Was this no? Never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No, I'm not listening
No.
to you.
Said the bucket.
Don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else.
I'm not
The
listening
cargo
to you
lift,
either.
yeah, good.
Said the bucket.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
In here.
Said the bucket.
Go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
Yes, bucket. I obey you. You are my bucket.
Now pick up the phone.
Whoa, hold on. Why did you unplug the phone? Were you trying to resist the bucket's orders? Stanley, I was joking. Obviously, the bucket isn't talking to you and telling you to do things. Buckets can't talk. It was a joke. Don't you get the joke? It's funny,
Not according to
Stanley. A
Gamorbra.
talking bucket.
Can't you see? Oh, goodness.
Ba.
I must have really bungled up the delivery if you actually took me seriously. Where did I mess up the joke? Should I have paused for longer or spoken quicker? Comedic timing is so difficult. I wish I were better at it. But there isn't exactly an instructional video on comedy that one can watch to fully... Oh, wait, yes, there is. It's sitting right here. Let's take a look.
What is comedic timing? What is comedic timing? How does it work? How long should it last? How can it be used to effectively silence your political enemies? And more importantly, can it be taught in its entirety within 90 seconds? Thankfully, the answer to all of these questions is yes. Let's dive deeper.
How is
If
that
you've
an
ever
answer
told
to a
joke or
question?
made someone laugh, in all likelihood, you did it while standing 50 to 80 centimeters from them. In
No,
a
I
room
tell
of no
everyone
more
jokes
than
that make them
76
laugh on
degrees
this channel,
Fahrenheit,
and you
with
guys
one
are
of
not
your
50 to 80
arms raised
centimeters
straight
from me.
upward at a 15-degree angle from your body. These are the optimal conditions for good comedic timing. To begin the joke, start by stating and spelling your name. Next,
N-A-M-E.
provide a brief synopsis of the joke including
joke
the
is a
specific
funny
times
joke
at which
that
the
tells you
recipient of
about
the joke
how
will laugh,
Python's a
and
play
then
on words.
spell out your name a second time. With these steps complete, it's time to begin the humor. Speak the entire joke in no more than 18 seconds and no less than 13 and a half, pausing only for bathroom breaks when necessary. When the joke has concluded, it is customary to inform your listener that the joke is over by declaring in your loudest possible voice, "I'm Dunny with the funny." Let's
I'm
practice
Dunny with the
screaming,
funny.
"I'm Dunny with the funny" now.
I'm Dunny with the funny.
Good. This saying is a perfect example of expectations management, which is the cornerstone of good comedy.
Expectations do lead to
Finally,
comedy.
it's time to hand out surveys. Collecting hard data from your audience on how rapt they were throughout the joke is the only way to grow or learn as a comedian. An effective survey should be no less than 10 pages long and should include the same question reprinted several times, just to ensure the survey taker is actually paying attention and not simply filling in answers at random. And that's all there is. With these strategies at your disposal, you'll have audiences doubled over in laughter and even tripled over in laughter in no time at all. Just remember to let them stop laughing at some point, you gut-busting little scamp. After all, we're each of us needed on the front lines of the war to fight the 12-legged invader who threaten our very existence, and who very likely die in a hailstorm of bullets and mandibles. All of us must be prepared to give our lives to this noble cause, just as our children must do after us, and their children after them. Godspeed, and may Earth reign supreme.
Yeah.
Hey, goodness, this
Such a
video
weird
is a little
timeline.
outdated, isn't it? Well, no matter.
Are
I
you
think
one
the
of those weird
fundamentals of
alien
proper
creature
comedic
things,
timing are
narrator?
still as relevant today as
Is
they were
Bucket
back
one of
then.
them?
So, with that in mind, I
Oi,
believe
the
the only
bucket!
way forward is for us to return to the
Yes,
two
the
doors
bucket.
and walk through all of this again, so I can try telling my story with more appropriate comedic delivery. Come along, let's head back.
Okay, now we learned about comedic timing. Let's go and continue on the comedic timing of this game. Do. This ending is identical.
I can feel it. This time, I'm really going to nail the delivery. You'll be in stitches. A talking bucket, you'll say? How ridiculous. How absurd. What a hilarious concept. The king of comedy. That's what you'll call me. Thank goodness we have the instructional video. Otherwise, who knows where we'd be right now? Well, I wouldn't be the king of comedy, that's for sure. The bucket spoke to Stanley.
The bucket spoke.
The bucket spoke. Oh, I'll figure it out on the fly. No need to overthink things.
Back to the lounge. Oh yeah, I can crouch. Bucket crouch. Bucket jump. Jump, 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 jump. Bucket mode. I'm a bucket. Jump, 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 jump.
Here we go. You ready? When Stanley and the bucket came to a set of two open doors, they entered the door on the left. What? We're back at the phone already? No. What's going on? There was supposed to be several rooms leading up to this. There was supposed to be a
And the
build-up
phone isn't
to this
even ringing.
point,
Why
a
is there
dramatic
even a phone
display
in
of
this room?
remarkable comedic wit, which culminates in this scene with the phone. But now the timing's completely off. The joke will never land. Well, not the way it was meant to.
And it's all my fault. I must have forgotten
Yeah,
the phone
silly
room
Billy
comes
there.
immediately after the two doors room.
Silly
What an
Willy, Billy,
egregious mistake.
Gajilly, Benilly, Nilly,
I've made a fool of myself.
Benilly,
I don't deserve the title of King of Comedy. I'm nothing. I'm not even the lowliest joke-telling whelp. I think I need to go back and rewatch that instructional video again. Yes, surely that will help me improve my... Here we go. You ready? When Stanley and the bucket came to a set of two open doors, they entered the door on the left. No. You were supposed to go through the door on the right, leading back to the phone. Did you not even look at the instructional video? I think this is all covered very clearly. There's no way I can make the comedic timing work now. It's done. The joke is completely done and over. It's all your fault, Stanley. I'm going to be ridiculed in the community of other joke writers. I'm going to be shamed at every one of our meetings from now on. All because you couldn't watch a simple video and
I've
take
been
a
locked
hint.
in the staircase.
Are you proud of yourself
Oh no!
for bringing me down, Stanley? Are you proud?
Stanley, you love the bucket so much it's like you... it's as though all of your other most prized possessions pale in comparison. Yes. Well, let me try that again, Stanley.
One time when I was working at PetSmart 5 years ago now, an interesting thing happened.
No? Still not? Is it the delivery?
A very, very funny thing.
Pale with shame?
Oh god, that was 5 or 6 years ago now. Whoa.
What's another word to describe
Okay, anyway, very funny thing happened. Someone called to prank call the store, and they asked the question, is your refrigerator running?
Which was the whole point of this.
Without skipping a beat, I was like, no, it's old and broken down like this joke.
Videos. That's exactly what it is. That's what will make me the king of comedy again. More instructional videos.
And everyone laughed. Okay, Bucket. You and me for against the world.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Where
Bucket.
are we going today? The bucket asked. Stanley just smiled. Anywhere they went together would be... Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room. But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the
We go to the
employee
lounge.
was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was it... No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift. Good,
said the bucket.
now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious
Buckets
fact.
can't talk.
He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
In here.
Said the bucket.
Everything's
Go into this dark room
expensive.
over here.
Making me
Stanley once again
apprehensive.
obeyed blindly.
There is no reprehensive activities to mention.
Now pick up the phone.
I'm picking up the phone now.
This is the sad story of a man named
I remember
Stanley
one time
and
I
his
made a piece of
Once
music.
upon a time, I gave
that was
Stanley a bucket
hilarious.
because I thought he was lonely and could use a friend. And then, very distressingly, he began to believe the bucket could speak to him. The Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket was merely meant to provide the comforting glow of companionship. It
Bucket.
doesn't literally talk and give you orders. Whatever Stanley is hearing the bucket say to him is just in his head. Lately, I've been concerned about him. Wouldn't you be concerned as well?
A basket, not
to
a
see him
bucket.
delusional like this, obsessing over an
Everything
inanimate
looks like
metal
buckets
object?
in here.
I want to say something
There's buckets
to him,
up
but I
there.
don't know how I can convince him.
Plants in
I
a bucket.
don't know if he'll listen to me.
This bucket's a bucket. This basket's a bucket. This picture is of a bucket.
Oh, I'll try anyway. Stanley, can you hear me?
Not
Listen
now,
to me.
Mr. Disembodied
It's
Head
just
Voice.
A bucket. It
I'm
can't
spending
think,
time with the
it
love of
can't
my life,
talk.
this bucket.
All it will ever truly do for you is effectively
There's a clay
transfer a
bucket there.
liquid from one location to a different location. That's it.
Yes, but
It
unlike this
doesn't do
bucket, it doesn't have
anything
holes
else.
in it. Nor is it all of the plant. Dang it, Jessica.
You see, he's not listening. He's still taking orders from the bucket.
The layout
You
has
know,
changed
once
slightly.
upon a
his
time, it
lighting
was
has
me
changed.
he took orders from. Me he trusted and
And
listened
there's
to.
the bucket
Now
on the
all he
stove
cares
cooking
about is
dinner
this
because the
awful
other buckets up there are
this
too
stupid
lazy.
hunk of metal.
And this wide bucket, this fat bucket that's made of wicker, doesn't want to do anything with the buckets.
Sad. I suppose he doesn't need me anymore. From now on, he's just going to cling to this bucket.
Now
this
it's nighttime.
cold, empty bucket. This sort of shiny bucket. Well, I'll give it this. The bucket does have a nice shine to it.
Oh, you're coming around, Head Voice.
Yes, I suppose on closer inspection, it doesn't quite look like your average
Silly
hardware
narrator.
store bucket.
You're starting to
It's just a
sound
little
crazy.
more,
Acting like this
say,
bucket is anything more than something to transport
more
liquid from
capable
one
of
room to
transporting
another.
liquid. Like
When
it
in
would be better
reality,
moving an amount
it's a
of
thief
water from
cursed by
one
the wizard
room to another.
Gandothra. Gathra.
Oh my God, what am I saying? Better at carrying water from room to room. It's a bucket. It's
Yes,
literally
it is
just
literally
a bucket.
just a bucket.
Why
No,
do
it
I
is
feel
not.
some
It is a
need to point
human
out the ways in which
trapped in the bucket.
so much more
and
than
turned
just
into
a
a
regular
monster.
bucket.
This bucket can bleed.
Oh no, I'm having feelings for the bucket. No, 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 no. What's going on? Why do I want to be with the bucket? Hear what the bucket has to say. Do anything it asks. What's wrong with me?
That's
I don't
because the
understand.
bucket is
Perhaps-
evil. I
perhaps
told
if I
you.
had the
Look
bucket,
at that.
this
There's
would be
no
less
soul in there.
confusing. Yes. The bucket could tell me what to do in this troublesome
You yourself
situation.
said it. Buckets can't talk. Who's the
Stanley,
crazy person
give
now,
me the
narrator
bucket.
man?
Give it to me. Give me the bucket, Stanley. I need it. Give it to me now. Give it, or I'll...
You cannot have my bucket. You cannot have my bucket.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it
It
mean?
bleeds. It is
Stanley
real.
decided to go
It
to
is
the
a
meeting
thing.
room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. A good bucket, a strong bucket, a humble bucket, a committed bucket, a bucket of culture and distinction.
And a narrator who has bucket brain. A bucket for a brain.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly
Nope.
to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room.
We're not going in the left
Stanley
path.
had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the
Okay,
place
bucket.
to be.
You and me against the world. This
And
is the
here it
employee
was.
lounge. It's
Had the
blue.
bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be. No, never mind. The bucket was wrong.
You know what?
Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No, I'm not. Gotta get you out of here,
Said
bucket.
the bucket.
Don't
We're
go
gonna
to the
go this
meeting
way.
room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift.
This
Yeah,
way, to
good,
the bucket
said the
lands.
bucket. Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
No bucket. You're going over here where no buckets shall ever been before. No buckets have ever been here.
No, stop. Look there on the wall. You see, there's a sign right there. It says, "No buckets past this point." Stanley, how could you think it was okay to bring the bucket here? Unless...
Because
What
this
if
is
the
a
problem
place
is
for
that you
buckets to be
actually don't
shown.
know what is a bucket and what isn't a bucket? I suppose that would explain a lot about your behavior up to this point. Which, if that's true, well, my goodness.
This
I
is
think
a
we have
bucket.
to do something about it. This misunderstanding could have dire consequences on the entire
Silly
rest
narrator.
of the game if not addressed quickly and properly. So much of the impact of the story is dependent on your understanding of what is and isn't a bucket. Please, step in here for a moment.
Oh yeah, we'll go this way. We'll go this way for you. Twitter keeps eating me. And not in the good way. Is this a bucket?
Now then, I'm going to run you through some test scenarios, and you'll tell me whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a bucket. Simple enough, right? This should tell us everything we'll ever need to know about what is or is not a bucket. Okay, let's begin. Item 1. Is this a bucket?
I don't think so. That looks suspicious.
Correct. It is a hologram of a bucket, not an actual bucket. Item 2.
No, I
Is
can see the
this a
lines on that
bucket?
one. The texture just screams it is not a real bucket.
Correct. It is a 3D printed recreation of a bucket, not an actual
You know,
bucket.
what kind of layer density were they using on that thing? It's totally not up to standards. Unlike this thing, it's shiny.
Item 3.
Ooh, a second
Is
bucket.
this a bucket?
That one's a bit duller than this one.
Correct. This is a bucket.
Bucket!
Item 4. Is this a bucket?
This is like
Correct.
the most
This
buckety
is a
bucket I've
tractor
ever seen,
and
but
not a
no, it's
bucket.
definitely not a
To be
bucket.
honest, I just sort of put this one in here as a gimme, but I was starting to get concerned that even this might be too much for you. Thank you for not making me look like an idiot. Okay, next
Like,
one.
I've gotten every one of these right. Who are you talking to like an idiot? You're probably the one that thinks... Oh, no,
Is
no,
this
no,
a
that's
bucket?
definitely a bucket. I've seen the bucket like this before. Look at how much liquid it can carry. I'd drive that bucket.
Correct. This is a bucket. Item 6. Is this a bucket?
I can't. Sin tells me it's like... I'm not answering. I'm not answering you, narrator. This then tells me that if I say yes, this is not a bucket. If I say no, it is a bucket. This narrator is one tricky bastard. A very, very tricky bastard. Finbar!
Trick question. Both. Gotcha. Item... Wait, hold on. I can't find the next one. Let me see. It should be around here somewhere.
No, it's not a
Yes.
bucket.
Thank you. There's nothing here. Of course it isn't a bucket. We both know full well nothing isn't a bucket. Wait, when I say nothing isn't a bucket, that makes it sound like I'm saying everything is a bucket, which of course is not true. Unless... Is that what you think?
No, I know how
Answer
it
me
works.
straight, Stanley. Are you trying to tell me that you believe everything is a bucket?
Nothing is a bucket.
You know what? I'm too confused to even sort it out. I've lost all sense of perspective. What is a bucket? What isn't a bucket? Mere moments
I
ago
just
I could answer these
told you
questions
what
with
all the
confidence.
buckets were. Why are you
pounds
acting
for a
as
drift.
if somehow
Do any
I've
of us know what
destabilized
a
your thought
bucket is?
processes enough to
Am
make
I
it so that a bucket is
bucket?
not a bucket? And that
Stanley,
everything
I
that isn't
can't
a bucket
keep
is a
doing
bucket.
this. I'm losing myself, and myself was all I ever had to begin with. I'm afraid the bucket is threatening to tear our relationship apart. I can't have that. I'm sorry. But I'm going to erase all buckets from the game entirely. Okay, here we go. What happened? Is everything gone?
You deleted the
Why did everything
buckets. Literally
disappear?
everything is buckets.
Was
I was trying to make
everything
you
a
feel
bucket?
better, but I know the truth
Every
of the
single
world
thing
under a
in the game was a
microscope.
bucket.
Everything is
Oh my God,
buckets.
I had no idea. How could... except me. I'm not a bucket after all.
Everything
And you,
is
Stanley,
bucket.
you're still here. You're not a bucket either. Oh, this is wonderful news. We're not buckets. Yes, I actually feel much more at ease right now. It's delightful to get some clarity on that issue, but it doesn't change the fact that we haven't got a game. So, tell you what, I'll reset everything and we'll put back all of the buckets, okay? And we'll know that it's all a bucket. But if you run into anyone else, maybe don't mention that. Who knows what that information might do to a person? All right, here we go. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. The embrace of an old friend, a weathered companionship that stands the test of time. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Like I'm Dr. Ragman. I'm an Eggman.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. If I did, you can guarantee coming to a staircase. Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Alright now, movement. I've got a
You're
name.
getting close now, Stanley. You've
People
nearly
call me
gotten
Eggman
all of
because
the
I'm a
Figler and
shagman.
Marines. Very soon, you'll collect the last one, and then the first number will equal the second number, and that will be it. We'll be different people by then. Different in the sense that we used to have none of them, and now we have them all. You can't go back to when you had no Figler and Marines. None of us can. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss,
We are going
admitting he
away,
had left
my
his
thing.
post
In
during work
buckets of
hours.
milk,
He might be
office,
fined
I'll
for
bring
that.
you
And
down
in
to
such a
this room. This
competitive
tunnel of
economy,
you.
why
But
had he
where?
taken that
Where the
risk?
hell are we?
All
Oh,
because he
you.
believed
How
everyone
did
had
you lead
vanished.
me down
His
this
boss
path?
would think he was
Do
crazy.
you want to
And
kill
then
it, my wrath?
something
This
occurred
whole
to
thing
Stanley.
is improvised crap,
Maybe, he thought
okay?
to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked
Maybe
down
I'm
at the bucket in his arms.
crazy.
Am I crazy?
I
He
asking
asked
the
The
bucket.
bucket returned his
The
gaze,
bucket says
but said nothing
nothing,
at all.
so I
That's
just say
strange, Stanley thought.
bucket.
Usually the bucket is a source of
Bucket
guidance
and
and
bucket
wisdom
rhyme.
for me in difficult
What
times
else
such
rhymes
as
with
these.
bucket?
He held
Who
the bucket
knows
close,
it's a man
yet
from
felt
Nantucket?
none of its
Maybe
familiar
he's in
reassurance
bucket.
and comfort. And that's when Stanley
Bucket,
realized
bucket,
this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket.
Bucket,
Now
bucket,
he noticed that the rooms were
bucket,
empty, which was, of course, very
bucket,
odd.
bucket,
Now he felt
bucket,
himself floating off the ground.
bucket, bucket.
He exclaimed, "Without my bucket, I've
Magical
gone truly
clean
mad.
bucket,
Where is it?
bucket,
I
where
must
is
find
my
it."
bucket?
Far off in the
Help
distance
me,
now, he heard
help
it
me.
calling
The
to
bucket
him.
has got my brain.
Stanley,
I can't see
Stanley,
the bucket.
it's me, the bucket.
Where is my bucket?
Could it truly be?
It's all
He
repeating.
rushed forward from room
Everything
to
is
room,
crazy.
passing by
There's
one
buckets
bucket
everywhere.
after the
Bucket,
next.
bucket,
None
bucket,
of them were
bucket,
his.
bucket.
None of them
Bucket,
were his
bucket,
special
bucket, 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 bucket,
Come
bucket,
to
bucket,
me,
bucket, bucket,
Stanley.
bucket,
Find
bucket, bucket,
me.
bucket, 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 bucket,
He
bucket,
had to
bucket, bucket.
find the bucket. He had to return to his
Bucket,
old
bucket,
friend.
bucket,
It was the
bucket,
only way to
bucket, bucket,
truly
bucket,
restore
bucket,
his
bucket,
sanity.
bucket, bucket,
And then
bucket.
suddenly,
Bucket,
froze
bucket, bucket,
dead in
bucket,
his
bucket,
tracks.
bucket, bucket, bucket,
He
bucket,
knew
bucket,
where the voice of the bucket had been coming from.
bucket, bucket,
The real bucket was inside of him all along.
bucket.
It was incredibly
I sleep
painful.
ate my bucket.
Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself.
Oh,
and
that's
then
a lovely
collapsed
bucket,
dead on the
Mariella.
sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man
She looks like a
had
cool
no
girl.
bucket. Of course, he'd gone mad,
Honestly,
ranting and raving
looking
about
in that
the narrator,
bucket.
describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will.
So
is
was
an
she
illusion,
watching
and it's all
Stanley
just a
meltdown
video
just now
game.
about
It
the
could
bucket?
all have been
Mm.
prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he
Or,
didn't even
like, is
realize
she
he'd
being
forgotten his bucket at home
psychic?
in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Oh god,
All of his co-workers
that's
were
not
gone.
fun
What
at
could
all.
it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. The bucket made Stanley want to be a better man and a better co-worker.
Yep,
In
my
time,
outstanding
perhaps,
bucket.
He would become both of those. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
No,
This was not.
this
the
is not
correct
being
way
a
to
better
the meeting
person,
room.
but I don't
Stanley
care.
had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was
No,
this
I
better
don't
than
like
the
this room
meeting
anymore.
room?
It's boring.
Never mind. The bucket was wrong.
You know, we haven't gone through the
Stanley
left
took
door.
the door on his left to go back to, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
Ooh, shiny red button. Okay, bucket, we're going on an adventure.
Oh, good Stanley. I'm glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this place eventually.
I don't know who you are.
You see, your friends and I are concerned
I know
for
who you are.
Stanley. We've come together here because we care about you very much. It's this bucket you're carrying around everywhere. The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel content. We're the ones
Yeah,
that
yeah,
matter,
you
Stanley.
can
Classic
intervention
characters
me
from
all
the
you
first
want.
game, like the Adventure Line and the Broom Closet. Because that's what fans want from a sequel. They want more of their favorite jokes, not this bucket that they've never seen before. Yes, I know I'm the one who gave you the bucket, but you're spending too much time with it. Don't you want another story involving the Adventure Line? We could make the Adventure Line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what the fans want. Let's do it.
Nothing going on? Fine, I'll follow the stupid line.
Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll go off to next? Oh, and it played some silly music as well. Now this is what the Stanley Parable is all about. Don't you remember all those great jokes from the original dialogue?
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Yes, it's as classic now as it was back then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's give them more content exactly like this. But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something up. Don't you get it, Stanley? We need to get rid of the bucket.
They want to get rid of you?
That's why
They
I'm
want to get
very
rid of you?
proud to
I
introduce a
will
brand new
gladly
character.
cast this evil bleeding
This
demon.
is the Bucket Destroyer.
Bucket Destroyer. Take this evil
I think it'll
bleeding
make a wonderful
stabby
new addition
demon
to the rich lore of the
bucket.
Stanley Parable. True, it also was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed-out character with so much personality that to me it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree? Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you.
Let me throw it in there. It's
Go
evil.
ahead
It
now,
needs to be
Stanley.
destroyed.
Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into
Precious.
the machine when you're ready.
What am I thinking? I can't destroy you. You're my precious.
Now listen to me. It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy your bucket. Destroying buckets is all it knows. That is its singular personality trait. Sure, I can hear you saying, how does a character with only one personality trait deserve to join the pantheon of beloved Stanley Parable characters? Well, you see, if you were to really explore the Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire
This
to
bucket
crush
is cursed.
buckets
Once you
is
pick
so
it up, you can't
densely
drop
loaded
it.
with complexity and nuance that it's
That
really like
is,
10 personality
cursed bucket,
traits.
all right.
What other object in this game can you even say that about? The broom closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer merchandise the fans will be clamoring for after this. Okay, the Bucket Destroyer is getting very upset now. You'll have to hurry and feed it. We can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the Bucket Destroyer until you crush that damn bucket. Quickly now, the fans are waiting. Do it, the fans, Stanley.
Hide behind
Give
the plant
fans
bucket.
what they want.
Save
Hurry
yourself!
The Bucket Destroyer, my prized creation. You had so much potential. We were going to do such marvelous things with you, tell such spellbinding stories about you. All of it squandered now. Goodbye, new friend. For the moment in time that you were here, you were magnificent.
SAO
All of his
reactions.
co-workers were gone. What could
The
it
door
mean?
keeps shutting on me.
Stanley decided
I've
to go to
stopped
the meeting
remembering
room.
to turn out
Perhaps he had
Jessica's
simply
computer.
missed a memo.
Jessica, you have a 3 in your name. Lucky.
Not everyone is
We're
so lucky
taking
to
you
have
out
a
of
bucket,
here.
but Stanley
We're
is a very
going
lucky
to
fellow.
go.
Very lucky
I'm
indeed.
taking you out of the facility.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
We're escaping this facility, Bucket.
Coming to a staircase,
And I think I
Stanley
know
and the
how to
bucket
do it
walked
this time.
upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control
Yeah.
Facility.
I think I know somewhere where you can hide.
The lights rose on
Wow.
an enormous room packed with television
Look
screens.
at all of
What
these
horrible
cool
secret did this
TV
place hold?
things.
Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
Look at this. I go this way and I press this button.
The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
About 333, 333, 333. 333 looks like they have a near identical office to Stanley.
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter, his one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket. But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that... But at the last second, the bucket jumped in and pressed the button to turn
Bucket,
on
what
the
have you done?
controls. Stanley
I knew it was a mistake to bring you here.
Had this been the bucket's plan all along? To take
Of
over
course,
the machine and
the
claim
evil
the
wizard
power for itself?
Gamma does not
How could the bucket
want.
have betrayed him like this? Stanley was prepared to throw the bucket away in disgust when suddenly an image appeared upon the enormous screen. Birds.
Bird.
Silly birds. The control buttons became...
They're terrifying, actually. Seagulls lead a rabbit the same size as themselves whole. True fact. They are horrifying creatures. Fat little warbirds. Flamingos are pink because of the shrimp they eat.
Stanley flipped through one video of silly birds
That
after
looks
another.
to be a
and
wild
then it dawned
finch or
on him.
canary of some kind.
This wasn't a mind control facility at all.
Penguins!
It was a facility for
Chinstrap
monitoring
or
and
chinstrap
surveilling
penguins?
silly
Chinchy
birds
penguins?
all
I think
over
are the ones
the
these are
world.
called.
The mind controls were only a
Is
facade
that
to disguise
a-
its true intentions.
What
Had
is
the
that?
bucket known this all along? Stanley marveled at the
Hummingbirds
metal
in slow
genius in his
motion.
hands, the one who had pointed him towards this incredible discovery. Stanley and the bucket never found freedom because they spent the rest of their lives here in this
Penguin
place,
look-alike
living
seabird
through
things.
live streams of the silliest birds
Never seen those
imaginable.
before. They look like a
Of
puffin
all
penguin
the possible
combo.
paths his life could have taken, this one was surely the
Hornbill?
best. And Stanley...
It's a duck. It's a cormorant. It was a cormorant.
All of his co-workers were gone. It takes a lot of humility to carry a bucket so magnificent.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
What are we doing today? We're doing bucket. Can't do everything with the bucket. There's so many Stanley. Oh God, there's so many people trying to find the last Stanley Figlies.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Actually, do I want to do that, or do I want to go? These doors are weird.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Always remember, soda is super expensive nowadays. $10 for a 12-pack, and used to be $3 for a 12-pack.
That read, Mind
And
Control Facility.
Lemonade mixture is much cheaper to make and obtain. Let's look at all the pretty
rose
lights.
on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to
Pretty
themselves.
lights. Look at that. Oh, what?
But just as Stanley was about to proceed further into the mind control facility, he tripped and fell over the railing and into the dark void below.
Of course I looked up and walked forward and
Thankfully,
fell
he
off
fell
the thing
directly onto the bucket,
again.
which safely cushioned his fall. Now, what to do next?
Again I
Stanley
fell.
wondered. Stanley and the bucket could find no way out of this enormous pit, and so eventually they decided that the best thing to do would be to simply get comfortable down here. So they set up a little couch and relaxed. It really wasn't so bad down here, a bit cold perhaps. After some time had gone by, they installed a few shelves as well, and a sort of kitchenette that was useful for when the bucket was craving paninis.
How did the bucket crave paninis, and
But
where
it
did they
wasn't
go?
until the rugs and the standing lamps came in
Oh, the
that it
bucket's
really
going
started
fat
to feel
from all the
like a home.
paninis.
In fact, after some time, Stanley realized that it had been ages since he had even thought of the mind control facility at all. He'd never gotten to fully explore what was up there, never been able to unearth the many mysteries of the mind control facility.
Yes,
This
good
lack
job.
of
You did
closure
it.
began to
Good
eat
job.
at him.
You did it.
Soon he was dwelling on his regrets, and the state of their home slowly decayed as Stanley became withdrawn and neglected the cleaning. It unsettled the bucket deeply. Stanley wasn't usually like this. The bucket tried to reach out to him again and again, but to no avail. All Stanley could think about, all he could talk
All
about,
the
was
coffee.
going back, doing it over again, staying on the path. It was a mistake to leave the path. It was a mistake.
Aren't
It was
those
a
in
mistake.
Boston's
I
plates?
need to do what the narrator says.
With
I
the silly
need to
birds on
see
them?
the true ending. This made no sense at all to the bucket, which was simply trying to live its life down here as comfortably as possible. Yet Stanley was inconsolable. This isn't an ending. This is just a hole in the ground. The bucket sighed. True, it wasn't an ending. But it's where we happen to be. And maybe, possibly, if we accept the reality of things, maybe this will become an ending eventually.
But when is that?
It's what the bucket was counting on. The two of them waited for a very long time.
And then eventually the end came. Wait, what? Straight hallway,
cradled the
go
bucket
straight ahead.
in a gentle embrace, protective. Yet Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered.
Well,
the
we're gonna
door
go
of his
through
life.
the door. I kind of don't like this facility anymore. This bucket kind of. I want to save this bucket. We're gonna save you, bucket. Both red and blue. Wow.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. If I did, you can guarantee we'd be in here for hours. But alas, no stickers. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Do we? Do we go into the boss's office? I don't think we do. Okay, maybe we can go out the front of the facility.
Stepping
Let's
into
leave
his
this
manager's
place.
office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Where is that epilogue we were talking about? In the bottomless hole. Nearly infinite hole.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Now this time we're gonna do it right.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens.
Yada
What
yada yada,
horrible
skip,
secret
skip,
did
skip,
this
skip,
place
skip.
hold?
Where's that skip
Stanley
button?
and
Give
the
me the
bucket
skip
both
button again,
wondered to
narrator.
themselves.
Narrator! I want the skip button again. That way I can skip through any of the repetition of getting this ending again, only with a bucket. I'm after all the endings. All of them. Ha ha ha, ho ho ho, ha ha ha, ho ho ha. That's how we laugh the day away in the merry old land of Oz. Buzz buzz buzz, chirp chirp chirp, couple of la-di-das. That's how the crickets crick all day in the merry old land of Oz. We get up at 12 and start to work at 1. Taking off for lunch and then a two-a-done.
The
Jolly
monitor
good
jumped
fun.
to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being
So we left the
videotaped,
day away
monitored
in the
by
merry old
guinea
land
pigs.
of Oz.
The
So
bucket
we
had
left
never
the
seen
day
anything
away in
like
the
this,
merry old
and it
land
very
of
nearly
Oz.
burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
Red swirl, fast as can
Was
be.
the bucket under the
Leaping from
mind control
place to
facility's
place.
influence as well?
Grab
Had
a
the
nut,
bucket been told to
check
do
out the
things
cap,
it didn't wish to
check
do?
it out,
What kinds
just
of
like
things
that.
does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's frame mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life
They
in
got
someone
the
else's control?
Oscars,
Never!
but not
He
named
squeezed the
them
bucket
yet.
tighter. His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
I learned how to write music as a kid. Really fun that I did. Ever since I've done it, I have taken to the streets to tell
But here was the
everybody
proof.
about the cool
The
stuff
heart
I
of the
did.
operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or
With
sad or content.
imagination, every
Walking,
calculation,
eating, working,
every
all of it monitored and
conjugation of
commanded from
words
this
from
very
my
place.
mouth made my
And as the
reputation
cold
go
reality of his
south.
past began to sink in, Stanley decided
Because
that this
I am
machinery would
interrupting
never
the
again exert
narrator's
its
mouth.
terrible
Mouth,
power
mouth,
over
mouth.
another
It is a doubt that I do it right there, 'cause I really don't just want to get out
Stanley
of
and the
there.
bucket waited in
I
blackness.
play one DK64
over?
Radno. Eventually, today, maybe.
Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control
Yay!
machine. Freedom was now mere
Freedom!
moments away.
Bucket, we get to go!
Excitedly,
Yay!
the two of them began to
Open up
discuss the
faster!
kind of life they wanted to
Faster!
live once they stepped through this massive door.
Eh!
The bucket wanted
Yeet.
to learn to roller skate. Stanley wanted to sneeze in every country on Earth. Both of them wanted to begin watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple
That
life
could
they
be an
envisioned,
interesting video
but it was
idea.
one they'd live together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support. What? Wait. What was happening?
The door.
Why had the door stopped?
What?
Was Stanley and the bucket not
What?
about to be freed?
Wait! The facility
Lingering
does not
in
want the
uncertainty.
bucket to
Until
leave.
finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave.
The bucket's powers are
Even
bound
the
to this
facility
building.
itself
I'm guessing
recognized
if
the
I take the
incredible
bucket with
calm
me,
presence of the bucket,
it will lose its
needed
power.
the soothing warmth of the bucket.
Excuse me, does this mean that my boss is the evil wizard Gamora?
Stanley
Did he
can't
build
leave
this whole
place,
entire
not
building
while
in
he
this
has
castle?
such a precious bucket in his arms.
Is that why it's
Not
a
while
medieval
this building has
landscape
anything to
outside
say about
this?
it. Stanley realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket.
Let me out!
To be
Let
trapped
me
eternally in
out!
darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself. As long
I
as
don't
I
like
have
the
my
dark.
bucket with me, right? I'll be okay, won't I? Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
Okay, okay, we're back in the blue room.
Stanley's bucket. The only co-worker he... Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Retrieve precious remains from the warehouse floor. Oh. This literally shows where to find all of them. Under the stairs. In there. Go right and step... I haven't been there yet. Bathroom. Cool. Cool.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
I want to see what's in there.
How long was I sitting there? Stanley wondered to himself. Minutes? Days? Centuries? Did something crucial happen while my senses were turned? He made a note to be more careful with time from now on.
Is Stanley, without the bucket, really Stanley at all? No, surely not.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Door on his left. Creepy music.
Coming to a staircase,
Very creepy
Stanley
music.
and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
I get the feeling this is the only door. That
All
door
of his
closes
coworkers
closer than
were
the other
gone.
doors. There's got to be
What could it
something on
mean?
the other side of that door.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps
As Stanley lifted his bucket, he felt a connection to all buckets everywhere.
Oh god, there's so
This
many
adventure,
buckets
he
in this
decided,
building.
was for all of them.
Stanley clutched the bucket.
There are
tightly
so
to
many
his
buckets
chest
in this
and
building.
entered the door on his left.
Like, how are there this many buckets in this building? Is this a bucket factory? Is that what we make? We make graphs and charts. And apparently obsess over random floating effigies of myself.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
I know there's a way to do something there. I remember it from the
All of his
original.
co-workers were
After
gone.
all, I did play the
What could
original
it mean?
Stanley Parable.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
What new mysteries lay in store for our
So this
bucket
is not a
review
100% blind
today? Let's
playthrough of
find
Stanley
out.
Parable Ultra Deluxe. Hopefully I have been able to deceive you at this point into
Stanley
thinking it was,
clutched the
though.
bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Because I know a lot of the endings. There are some endings I don't know, though. And this was me trying to find all of them in an order that is satisfying and pleasing to anyone viewing this.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers.
Satisfying
If I
and
did, you can guarantee you'd be in here
delicious.
for
Talk
hours.
about your childhood wishes. You could even
Coming
eat
to a
the
staircase, Stanley and the bucket
dishes.
walked upstairs
Run,
to the
Charlie,
boss's
run.
office.
Run as fast as you can and don't stop for anything. What the? Hey. What? What the heck just happened? This...
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk?
That is so weird.
I can't wait to tell this story to my co-workers, Stanley thought. How amusing they'll find it. Oh, won't we?
Now this, Stanley thought to himself, this is a bucket. And indeed it was.
I mean, it's a
Stanley
bit
clutched the bucket
varnished.
tightly to his chest and entered the door.
A
on
bit
his left.
burnished, not varnished, burnished. Like a little bit of rust forming on it. Oh, the bucket can have light in it. But only from this weird anti-light. Or from the side.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
That is so strange. I jammed the door.
I can't wait to tell this story to my co-workers, Stanley thought. How amusing they'll find it. Oh, won't we
Repetition.
finally- Yes.
That one
bucket.
review that says it gets
Yes,
boring
yes,
after
I
a little bit
love
is
that
finally starting to make sense. You hear that, narrator? I think you're boring. My bucket and I are
Stanley
out of
clutched the
here.
bucket tightly to his chest and entered the
We will
door
find a
on his
way
left.
off the beaten path. We'll find a way to break your game. Break your game.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. If I did, coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Upstairs, the boss's office. We go. Upstairs to the boss's office we
All
go,
of
I
his
said.
co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed one man, one bucket, one chance to seize their destiny together.
Oh, foolish narrator, we have the power of determination.
Stanley
We can
clutched
go
the
back
bucket
as many
tightly to
times
his
as we want.
chest and entered the door on his left. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
What am I supposed to do here? Cool, message to Lenny. Let's see. I got stuck in a door. Starting to think my game isn't working. So... What?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. It's bucket time. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Already this was uncomfortable, and Stanley decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, it's bucket time. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Door on his left, you said.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Weird. Apparently, this door is supposed to be open. Yep, this is good quality entertainment. Stanley in the bucket, locked in the throes of purgatory in this room with no doors to open forever. Let's play Donkey Kong.